Hey everybody, Ethan here from WordTech, back with another video for you guys, and this time I'm going to be doing an overview of my new project slash build slash channel centerpiece that I'm going to be doing over the next 6 to maybe 8 months, depending on when hardware comes out and depending on finances. But this is the most ambitious PC project I've ever taken on, and I'm very excited to do it. So I've been wanting to do a build this high end for an extremely long time, and I was never really sure if I was going to get to, but I finally have the time and the money as well as the follower base to do this, so thank you guys for that. And it's just going to be overkill, although I put that in quotes because it's not really overkill for the video work that I do, especially working with all the 4K footage and stuff like that. But it's basically like I spend all of my time on my PC other than when I'm working at my job. Or doing filming for this, obviously. Other than that, I basically spend all of my time on my PC, so it makes sense to invest my money there as well. So I think it's also somewhat logical, even though it is pretty crazy what I'm going to be doing here. So to go ahead and jump straight into the hardware overview, the centerpiece of everything here is the Threadripper 1950X CPU, which I will obviously be overclocking to like 4 gigahertz, maybe 4.1, 4.2 if I'm real lucky. 16 core 1950X processor, absolute monster. I got it for a great deal. It was actually on sale for $880 US when I purchased this, so I just went ahead and picked it up, even though I don't have a motherboard for it yet. I'll be getting one in a couple of weeks for that, but this thing is just a monster. It's going to help hammer through video editing. I'm going to be able to video edit and render and game and all that stuff simultaneously, so I'm very excited to have a processor this powerful, because I frankly never owned anything anywhere near this powerful. It's still 10 cores higher than my main workstation that I have behind me, as well as higher clock speeds per core, so I think it's just an absolute monster. And then the case that I'm going to be using is the Thermaltake The Tower 900. As you can see, it's a massive case. It stands at about 2.5 feet tall. It is just a monster. I love the case. I love the looks. I think it's very well built. I'll be doing a full review on it though, because there are a few complaints and stuff, obviously, so I'm sure you guys want to know what it's all about. Plus I noticed there's not a lot of reviews of this case out there, so pretty soon I'll be giving you guys a full review. But it's great for full custom water cooling. It supports a massive amount of hardware, and just a very, very good case, I think, for a very long-term build, as well as potentially a build that's going to last me a long time, because other stuff will be upgraded, but the centerpieces like the motherboard, the processor, and the case will probably be around on this build for a couple of years. Now for motherboards, I'm going to be using the ASRock X399 Gaming Professional. Those of you that watch the channel very consistently probably know that in some of our live streams and stuff like that, I've talked about not being the fondest of ASRock, and that's for a variety of reasons. I've had a lot of stability problems with them in the past. But right now for X399, they're the only motherboard manufacturer that has a dedicated 10 gigabit Ethernet built into the board. And I know what some of you that really know your boards are thinking, what about the Asus Zenith Extreme? It's listed as a 10 gigabit. It comes with a PCI Express 10 gigabit adapter. It does not have 10 gigabit built into the rear I/O of the motherboard. And I want to try and save my PCI Express slots as well as my PCI Express lanes. Not that there is any major limit on this with them, but I want to be able to save those for other stuff, future expansion cards, capture cards, probably not sound cards, but if I ever wanted to do it, something like that. So I want to make sure that I have that extra kind of space there. Now, jumping over to the RAM, the plan is to go with 128 gigabytes of G.Skill Trident Z RGB, which obviously is a little bit overkill, but to be completely realistic, I have 40 gigabytes in my laptop over here. I have 32 gigabytes in my main workstation, and I tend to use all of that up when I'm doing extreme work because I leave tons of stuff open. I usually have like 30 to 50 Chrome tabs open constantly, and I'm also doing editing and gaming, and some games can be pushing almost 10 gigabytes on their own at this point in time. So I want to be able to make sure I just have plenty of RAM to never have to worry about it for a pretty long period of time. Now, the start will actually be 32 gigabytes of Kingston HyperX, because that's what I have in my current workstation, and that's DDR4 as well, because that's running on my Ryzen 1600 6-core CPU, so that's obviously DDR4, so that'll function with this, and that's what I'll use for the time being, but it'll shortly after be upgraded, although I'm hoping RAM prices drop a little bit, because at the time of filming this video, they're still definitely overpriced compared to like a year ago. Now for GPUs, I'm going to be doing something, I'm not really sure yet actually, something obviously high-end and overkill, but I haven't decided if I want to go with 2 1080 Ti's, 2 Titan XPPs. Yes, I said the Titan XPP because we had Titan X Pascal that everybody called the Titan XP, then NVIDIA launched the Titan XP, probably just to piss everybody off. So I'm calling it the Titan X PP. So anyway, that Titan X, the newer one, 2 of those, or potentially 2 of the Titan X Collector's Edition that might be coming out. There's some rumors floating around about that. Or potentially the next generation Pascal stuff, like the Pascal Refresh 1180 or 2080, whatever they call it. So again, I haven't decided yet. I'm actually going to be starting with an NVIDIA GTX 660 Ti, which by any means is not a very high-end GPU. But within a month, I'll actually have a 970 running in here after this build is assembled. GTX 970, I'm buying a used one of those just so that I can at least play some games on it, so I'm not stuck with using my laptop for that. But the 660 Ti is what I have laying around, and the most important aspect to this is obviously the processor, because the higher performance that I can get out of video editing, the more performance I can get out of my processor, the better. As for power supplies, I'm going with a Silverstone 1500 watt titanium rated power supply. Absolute monster. You may be wondering why I'm not going with like the Corsair AX 1500i, and that's actually because that is technically too long for the listed specifications for this build. And the issue isn't so much that you can't fit it, because I've seen people fit it in this build. It's a popular power supply for overkill systems, but more so that if I want to use an optical drive in here as well, it's going to make things kind of cramped. And so if I can get a slightly shorter power supply, that's definitely going to make a difference for me. And this 1500 watt from Silverstone is both newer, it basically just came out, and it's also a little bit shorter, and it still has the flat cables and everything like the AX 1500i, so I expect it to be pretty easy to do custom cable sleeving and stuff like that on it. So that's the one I'm planning to go with. We'll see if that changes. That one's a little bit up for debate. As for storage though, and this is where things get maybe a little overkill, actually overkill, but it's something that I'm excited to do anyway. Everybody on here that follows this channel consistently knows that I'm a total storage whore, so that's me. But the boot SSD is going to be Intel's new 900p Optane SSD. Not sure which capacity yet, just depends on what I decide to go with there. That is just for boot though. There's going to be no editing and stuff done directly on that SSD, but it's a complete monster of an SSD. It has just blown a lot of the other SSDs out of the park when it comes to the majority of benchmarks. There's a few things that it's a little bit slower on than something like the 960 Pro from Samsung, but it's more consistently beating everything than that is, as well as it's the idea behind Optane is low latency, not necessarily the highest performance that you can possibly get, like sequentials and stuff. So anyway, very excited to have that. It's just came out, brand new SSD. I'll of course be doing a review on that. Now, for the other SSDs and the hard drives I'm putting in here, so the other SSDs, I'm going to have 2 960 EVO M.2 NVMe SSDs. 1 terabyte models is most likely what I'm going for. Those will be in RAID 0, and that's going to be for doing all of my editing off of. So those will be just super, super fast. It'll be great to edit off of. You may be wondering why I'm going with such high capacity drives, and that's because I actually do all my editing in GoPro's Cineform format, and I've had projects take over 500 gigabytes before, depending on how long the video is, especially with a lot of 4K footage, and if I'm doing capturing footage and more B-roll and stuff like that. And if I'm working on multiple projects at the same time, then I'm definitely going to need more capacity. So even if I have 2 projects that are 500 gigabytes or 600 gigabytes, I'm going to still be able to work with both of them simultaneously. So that's the reasoning behind that. Now, 2 more SSDs that I'll be putting in this is 2 1 terabyte 850 EVOs from Samsung. Those are SATA-based SSDs, not the fastest thing on the market for SATA, but they are still almost the fastest up there. Like the 850 Pro still technically beats it a little bit, but those will mostly be for gaming, and that'll also be in RAID 0, and that's just for games that I want to load quicker and stuff like that, as well as potentially overflow footage, or if I manage to, fill up those 2 1 terabyte 960 EVOs with all editing, I can still have SSDs to edit off of, so I'm not stuck with editing off hard drives, because that's what I currently do, and that is not very fun. Even in RAID 0, they just don't keep up very well when you start adding more than one source of footage being scrubbed on the timeline at the same time. Now for hard drives, I'm going to be going with 2, which I already own these actually, 2 4 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drives, either desktop drives, 7200 RPM, pretty monster drives, although in terms of how big drives are getting today, I guess they're not that monster. Those will also be in RAID 0, so that's 8 terabytes of storage there for mostly other games and potentially some media, although most of my media, as well as my video work and stuff like that, is actually offloaded to a server once I'm not working on it. So RAID 0, they might fail, whatever, I don't really care. It's mostly just for my games, right? And I have a huge game library, so it makes sense for me to go with such a massive amount of storage there so that I just don't have to worry about it for a long time. I actually even considered going with 16 terabytes, but that's probably so overkill I'd never use it. So I ended up going with 2 4 terabytes, which is what I'm using on my workstation right now. And that's actually what I edit off of right now rather than play games off of, because I have the 660 Ti in there. I don't want to really want to game off of that. Now to move over to the water cooling. This is the section that I'm actually actually really excited about because I've never done a custom water loop myself. I've had a lot of experience with AIOs and stuff like that, but I'm excited to do a custom water loop. And obviously if you own the Tower 900, you've got to do a custom water loop. There is no way that you can't, like, it doesn't look good. I have seen some builds, no offense to anybody that maybe sees this, but I've seen some builds that are air cooled or potentially with all-in-one water coolers in this, and they just don't look very good. And I mean, the water cooling is going to be coming several months from now, so for the time being I'm actually using an AIO, which will look kind of funny, but I'm totally okay with that because the plan is to move over to high-end water cooling once I get the GPUs thrown in here as well and some of the other stuff upgraded, because the raw performance is more important to me than the aesthetics for the time being. So moving into the water cooling parts, I'm planning to go with a 560 millimeter, so that's a quad 140 millimeter setup there in push-pull on one side, and either a 360 millimeter or a 420 millimeter radiator on the other side. I want that bottom fan slot. I want to have some space there to put some of my fan controllers and stuff like that I'm going to be using, as well as potentially extra bundles of cables or whatever I might need to put down there. So that area, I'm not going to be going with two full 560 millimeters, even though they technically fit in here. All will be in push-pull though, and they'll be using the noise blocker E-loop fans throughout this entire build. Every fan spot will be filled with a noise blocker E-loop. Those are very expensive fans, but I'm very, very happy with them. I've used them in the past in other builds. Extremely quiet, great static pressure, great airflow, and they match the overall aesthetic of this system. So I'm incredibly excited to use those. Those are really good fans actually. And unlike a lot of people, I get excited about fans. I get excited about hard drives and fans and motherboards rather than graphics cards, you know, but that's just the way I am, I guess, right? So gotta go with something premium there. I'm excited for that. And realistically, they beat a lot of the Noctua stuff, if not the majority of the Noctua stuff, pretty consistently when it comes to static pressure and noise levels and stuff like that, and they're not ugly, so I decided to go with those over Noctua, even though the engineering behind Noctua is also pretty incredible. For the pumps, I'm going to be using dual D5 pumps. That may sound like a little bit of overkill, and I'm not doing two separate loops. It's all going to be one loop for this entire system, so you may be questioning why, and there's actually two reasons. First off, that makes it easier to have my reservoirs at the same height level in this system, because the reservoirs, there's going to be two of them in the front, and I like to have the reservoir pump combos where the actual pump goes on the bottom of the reservoir, so that's going to help there when it comes to aesthetics. But the main reason that I'm actually doing that is they're going to be set up in a series, which increases the overall pressure as well as a little bit the actual water flow in the water loop there, but it also adds a layer of redundancy. I don't turn my systems off. All of my systems, other than like my Ultrabook here, are on 24/7. My server, my main build, even my laptop that I spend time gaming on and stuff, I don't turn them off. And I don't want to have to do that with this build, because obviously it's my most premium build. It would seem dumb to not be able to do something that I can do on other stuff. But it's not really recommended if you only have a single pump to do a 24/7 system unless you're not so concerned about potential overheating issues, because you can have some serious damage happen. And I mean, the system eventually will crash and shut itself down when it gets to a certain temperature. That's how modern hardware is built, but you still don't want any overheating. It could cause permanent damage if a pump fails while I'm out and about at work or something. Obviously, if I'm gone for more than like a day, I'd turn it off in case there's some minor leaks or something like that, and then I would be able to catch it in time before it potentially causes damage to the hardware. And obviously I'm using non-conductive fluid too, which does help, but it becomes conductive over time, as we know. So the leaking is not really my major concern though. It'd be a pump failure. And this way, if a pump fails, I've still got one pump pumping the liquid through there, so I shouldn't have to ever worry about any overheating issues due to that. So that's why I'm going with dual D5 pumps. All the tubing will be PETG tubing rather than soft tubing, except for in the back section here between the radiators. That'll obviously be soft tubing because that just makes it so much easier to wire things up using soft tubing. But everything in the front section here is going to be custom bent PETG, which I have no experience with yet, but I'm going to be buying a kit and just doing some practice bends and stuff like that over the next couple of months before I actually do the custom loop in this, because like I said, all the hardware is more important to me than the custom loop for the time being. But the custom loop is something that I'm definitely pushing really hard to get done in this system as soon as I can afford to do that after I get all the main hardware put in here. Now, as for fan controls, because I'm going to be having like 19 to potentially more fans in this system here, and in order to control all of those, I don't like using motherboard control because the motherboard software tends to be crap. It doesn't look very good in my opinion when you have little fan cables plugging into the board up here. I like to try and keep things that are plugged into the board to an absolute minimum. So I'm going to be using 3, maybe 2, I haven't really decided the quantity yet, NZXT grid Grid Plus V3 fan controllers. Now you may be wondering why I'm using so many of them, and that's because there's so many fans and I want to still be able to kick them up to pretty high RPMs when I want to. So I don't want to have like 3 fans wired per channel on that Grid Plus V3 because it does have a power limit output. I'll probably end up doing 2 of them and just having pairs of fans on them overall. But yeah, so that's what I'll be using to actually power all of the fans in here. They plug into the power supply directly, so you don't have to have anything running your motherboard other than a USB cable, which I'm going to be using a USB hub internally to do that. So I'll only have one USB cable plugged into the actual motherboard. That should work out really well. And then for the RGB lights that I'm planning to put in here, because I am going to be putting RGB LEDs in the top as well as the kind of side frontal area here, is going to be the NZXT Hue Plus. Those have really great control on them, and they're USB based as well, and probably, in my opinion, still the best way to do RGB in a system. Even though most motherboards have the addressable LED headers on them now, I still feel like the Hue Plus is a really great way to go. Plus, the NZXT cam software, which is what I'll be using for system monitoring as well as the fan control, is going to have the RGB stuff in there from the Hue Plus as well, so I don't have to have multiple applications for that. And last but not least, of course, I'm going to be going ahead and doing custom cable sleeving, which may actually come before the water cooling depending on what hardware is out and stuff. So that's something I'll just keep you guys updated on, but I'm definitely planning to do custom cable sleeving on every cable here to match the color scheme of the build. Now, the color scheme of the build, I may not have gone over that yet, and there's actually a reason for that. So I'm glad that any of you that stuck around to the end of this video, you're gonna get to hear something interesting here. So I'm actually reaching out to you guys to help me decide what the color scheme is out of a few options. So please don't give me options that aren't on this list because I don't like a lot of the other colors. So anyway, I'm planning to do, and my current thing that I'm sticking with most, but I want to get your guys' opinion on it as well to see what I decide to do on it, as well as the name of this project blank. I don't really know what I'm going to call it yet, but either a monochrome style system, but maybe a little bit different, not black and white, but monochrome. And so like I'd have gray fluid, gray, not very transparent, like gray opaque fluid that'll be in here, and potentially some like gray fittings and stuff like that, rather than just pure black and white, because pure black and white's been done before, but I don't see a lot of just monochrome builds, and I haven't seen one done in this specific chassis yet, so I think it'd be something unique to do. But my other options would be potentially green accents, like green fluid, or blue accents. I haven't really decided yet. I'm again leaning towards doing a more monochrome style system, but I wanted to see what you guys think. Now again, please don't suggest yellow or red or purple or something like that. Those are not aesthetics that I'm interested in personally. And you have to remember, my entire setup back here is black and white. That's what I stick with, is a mostly black and white, a little bit of gray, so I suppose monochrome, right? So monochrome, I feel like, goes along with this really well, but I wouldn't mind having the centerpiece of all of the tech that I own. This is obviously the centerpiece. Have maybe some accent coloring like green or blue. My preference is probably green, so those are actually listed in order of my preference, but I'm going to be putting a link in the description to a poll to see what you guys think I should do when it comes to the aesthetics of this system. So again, I'm leaning towards monochrome, but I still want to see what the community thinks because I haven't really decided. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I'm not really sure yet. So anyway, everybody, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know what you guys think of the aesthetics and what I should do for the aesthetics of this. Again, there is a poll that you guys can vote, but also leave a comment to let me know more details of what you think I should do in specific, like what things should be green maybe or something. And obviously leave a comment and let us know what we're doing. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you think of the video quality that we're doing here. And obviously don't forget to check out all the links in the description to stuff like our Patreon page, where you can give us a monthly contribution to support the channel. All of that money goes directly into more hardware or camera gear that actually benefits the channel, so you guys will see any money that comes from that goes straight into the channel. And I will point it out in specific when that happens, although I don't have a ton of patrons yet, so I haven't actually spent any of that money on any hardware yet. But when that happens, I'll try my best to remember to point it out to you guys, so that those of you that are supporting us, which we greatly appreciate, actually know what comes out of the money that you guys have been giving to the Patreon page that we have there. And then obviously we've got links to our website as well as our various social media links. Twitter is a decent way to get a hold of us. Also, obviously, going on the website and checking out the forums and potentially leaving suggestions there or posting your own builds and stuff like that there. This will be covered in a build log format on the actual forum as well. Again, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.